Alright guys, Wes here, welcome back to the channel. So as you know, Dragons Dogma II is rapidly turning into one of the biggest games of the year. Initially revealed in June of 2022, the sequel to 2012's Dragons Dogma is a huge fantasy RPG with tons of vocations to build your character from and a heavy emphasis on NPC interaction and a pretty sophisticated AI system, which means that NPCs learn and grow as you play, which adds to the overall immersion of the game world and making this one of the most technically advanced games that Capcom has ever funded. With the March 22nd launch day right around the corner, more info has come out about what to expect from Dragons Dogma 2. So today we're going to go over everything that we've learned recently from the final hands-on preview, the brand new vocation that was revealed, as well as some controversial details that were leaked in late January. We have a lot to talk about, guys, so check the video chapters for easy viewing, and without further delay, let's get into it. So recently, PlayStation did a state of play where we got a brand new trailer for Dragons Dogma 2, and in that trailer there was actually a blog post that was posted shortly after that gave us some brand new gameplay details, as well as the introduction of the Warfare vocation. According to the description, wield a great sword, chant high level magic, and deceive enemies with illusions. The Warfare is a vocation that allows you to engage in combat while switching between weapons of other vocations. So the Warfare vocation is exclusive to the main character, the Arisen. Warfarers can use all types of weapons and learn the core skills of all vocations. They said that it's the ultimate vocation, so to speak. Some vocations excel at close combat or are skilled at support, and the Warfare can utilize the strengths of each vocation as its situation demands. The Warfare has the potential to release powerful combos such as the Trickster skills to deceive enemies and open up opportunities to chant powerful attack magic. However, the Warfare is not an almighty vocation. Their basic stats are not high, and they must carry many weapons in order to use the various skills. They continued by saying they will require player skills to exploit strengths in different situations, or else the vocation will remain a lesser version of each of their respective vocations. Only those who have honed their skills and adaptability will be able to bring out the full potential of the Warfare. The blog continued by talking about the Vocation Maesters. They said around the world of Dragons Dogma, there are Vocation Maesters who have mastered their respective vocations. First, we have Linart, the Fighter Vocation Maester, a swordsman with the remarkable combat and leadership skills. There's a Vocation Maester for the Mystic Spearhead, Sigurd. He wanders from place to place seeking out dragons, and as you deepen your relationship with Vocation Maesters and earn their approval, they may grant you special tomes that will allow you to unlock new vocations or acquire skills known as Maester Teachings. For instance, the Maester's Teaching for the Archer is Heavenly Shot. This fires an arrow with the maximum power in exchange for consuming all of the player's stamina. There's also Wild Fury, the Maester Teaching for Mystic Spearhead. Creating a double out of magic, it allows the player to deal both magic and physical damage. So I'm expecting there to be a ton of Maester Teachings in this game, and honestly I look forward to finding them, building a relationship with the Vocation Maester to unlock the tomes for the respective vocation that I choose to play as. Next up, we have some new details about Dragonsplague, which is a contagious disease-like status effect that infects pawns under certain conditions. Now, whenever a pawn gets the Dragonsplague while affected, the pawn's basic stats will improve and their behavior will change. It spreads among pawns on their travels between worlds, and in the early stages of the illness, the afflicted pawn won't fall ill, but rather displays abilities and confidence that exceed what they would normally have. In the later stages, however, of the illness, the Dragonsplague is said to result in a devastating calamity. Now, there's not much other information about Dragonsplague in this world, but it is a rare illness, so if someone in your party is unnaturally bossy or overly active, they may have contracted Dragonsplague. So essentially, whenever one of your pawns gets that, you can kind of choose whether or not you want to try to cure them, possibly utilize that positive boost to their strength, and then continue on your journey. But at the end of the day, it is our choice throughout our journey in Dragons Dogma. So moving right along, we have a hands-on preview from IGN recently posted where they talk about their 10-hour preview experience for Dragons Dogma 2, and they revealed a ton of details about how the game plays during lengthy sessions. The first thing that the author talked about was what they thought was a simple side quest turned into a lengthy story that culminated into a 20-minute battle. After they talked to an NPC who simply asked them for help tracking down their missing grandson, they kept stumbling upon random world events, including multiple battles with a griffin who had ambushed them, gotten scared off, and then later came back for revenge, which, if this is any indication that NPCs can hold grudges if you don't kill them in a fight, that's pretty awesome. And according to the author, none of these epic griffin fights were actually a part of the quest to find the missing grandson. They were simply random world events that they encountered while wandering around that area of the map. In this game, everything comes together to create a huge open world that is extremely organic in the way things are presented to the player. A massive part of the game is exploring the open world and learning how to interact with the NPCs and figuring out how to navigate this fantastical society without the helping hands that most other open world games give you. In Dragons Dogma 2, there are no quest boards where where you enter named areas, no markers over the heads of important NPCs, and the user interface is very minimalistic to encourage you to walk around and talk to people instead of just beelining to big glowing objective markers like in most open world games. Your party members or pawns help you navigate the world with you, pointing out certain important elements and locations, but it sounds like a lot of this game will be you wandering around and doing your own thing and kind of just letting stuff happen to you and learning more about the places you're in. NPCs will often approach you with opportunities for side quests instead of the other way around, which will help contribute to the feeling like you play an important role in this world. So interestingly enough, there's at least 2 of the vocations in this game that are unlocked via quests, which that kind of tells us that there's probably going to be more, especially whenever you consider how many vocations that there are. However, this decision slightly conflicts with the fact that there's only 1 save file at launch, which this is a pretty bizarre decision given the fact that there are so many vocations to choose from, and the developers clearly intended for you to play through the game multiple times with multiple characters to unlock new options. Plus, on top of that, whenever you start a new game, you also create a pawn, which could go inhabit someone else's game. So wouldn't it benefit Dragons Dogma 2 to allow multiple characters and multiple pawns at once? Hopefully Capcom listens to us and clears this up and adds more save files, because I know a lot of people have been pretty disappointed by the singular save file in a game like this. Now, whenever it comes to the warrior vocation, IGN reported that the warrior got a pretty substantial buff from the first game, thanks to feedback from players who thought the warrior wasn't really viable before, but with an increase in strength and some massive two-handed weapons, the warrior can now one-shot some pretty huge enemies if you manage to get a fully charged strike on them, which that will be a pretty valuable addition to your team. In fact, the game's director has even called the warrior unfair in recent interviews, thanks to the sheer amount of buffing that they did, but they also made a point to make the warrior a bit harder to use than before in order to balance the amount of damage output that they can do. Basically, going from Dragons Dogma 1 to Dragons Dogma 2, they made a ton of adjustments to the vocations from the first game, thanks to all of the fan feedback. However, there's been some vocations that have been touched up more than others. The warrior seems like it's gotten the most noticeable changes, and it's unclear just how much the other vocations have been altered from the first game, but rest assured, the vocations haven't been simply copied and pasted from Dragons Dogma 1. Now, the preview also talked a bit about how the map interacts with the flow of gameplay events. As you've probably heard, the map of Dragons Dogma 2 is roughly 4 times the size of the original game, but the IGN preview claims that despite the insane size, it's also very dense with NPCs and world events, both on and off the main pathways, so you never go too long without something exciting happening. But you'll also have some breathing room so you're not too overwhelmed or constantly being thrown into combat encounters like you're in the tall grass of a Pokemon game. Now, one thing that Dragons Dogma 2 is going to do that's kind of different from other open world games is how they approach fast travel. The director didn't want players to rely on fast traveling and instead immerse themselves in the world that they're inhabiting, and the system that they came up with was an item called a fairy stone, which are pretty hard to come by and rather expensive to buy from a shop, but by using a fairy stone you could travel between discovered port crystals. But there is a second option for fast traveling, albeit a bit more realistic for the world that you're in, and those are ox carts. Ox carts are basically the public transit system of Dragons Dogma 2, meaning they're cheaper, but they can also go between predetermined locations, and they aren't totally safe, meaning you could potentially be attacked by a mythical creature or hostile faction while traveling. So you could either travel on foot and play it safe, but that also runs the risk of getting killed along the way, and you could also potentially run into the awkward situation that the IGN previewer did, which the Griffin, as I mentioned earlier, followed him around and ambushed him in a campsite because the flames of his campfire attracted it for revenge. So there's kind of a risk and reward for every aspect of Dragons Dogma 2, and honestly, I think that's awesome. Now, another detail revealed in the preview is that the healing items do not heal over your HP cap, but they can also be used instantly. This will make healing up during battle a little bit more convenient, but also ensures that healing items aren't abused and basically used as free buffs in the heat of battle. It will also likely lead to an increased importance on towns and camps where you can refill your healing items, kind of like the core gameplay loop of Dark Souls games, where your healing items give you a set amount of HP back, but they can be refilled at checkpoints. Overall, technically a minor change from the first Dragon's Dogma, but it will likely have a pretty big effect on the way that combat plays out. Now, there's been some concerns raised about the sheer size of the game, and I'll admit that the preview did mention that things could hypothetically get overwhelming once the map opens up a bit, and now you're face to face with the laundry list of possibilities. I've seen some concerns addressed that the massive map size with the limited fast travel system that could potentially lead to things getting a bit tedious on the latter parts of the game once you've leveled up to a certain point and have a basic understanding of where all of the main points of interest are. And to some extent, I could see where those criticisms are coming from, but I'm sure it'll be a blast exploring the map for the first time and learning all of the ins and outs of this world. But what about when you're 20 to 30 to 40 hours in and you already know where everything is? Will traveling get boring at that point? Or what about when you're on your third or fourth character? Will it start to feel like a chore rather than an exciting piece of immersion? Obviously, there's not really a way to know at this point, and I'm sure that the team put a ton of effort into the game's exploration and immersion. So for that reason, I am totally willing to give Dragons Dogma 2 the benefit of the doubt, but it could be a cause for concern in the future. But yeah, guys, that's gonna wrap it up with this video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. Hit the like button if you've enjoyed it. Will you be picking up Dragons Dogma 2 once it releases? And what vocation are you looking forward to playing as the most? Thanks again for watching. This has been Wes, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.